the average pleb needs to know that you're up against everybody now. You're up against Sailor, you're up against the US trying to create their SBR. You're up against Bitcoin bonds, you're up against Bit bonds, you're up against, pretty much everybody. And you're fighting for sats against nation states because they're already buying and mining it. And now it's just going to accelerate and it's going to drive up demand massively. So that's the thing you have to know. That's the biggest takeaway. You have to stack like there's no tomorrow.
샘슨 모우는 비트코인 업계에서 매우 잘 알려진 인물로 특히 비트코인 최대주의자로서 활동하고 있는 대표적인 인물 중 하나입니다. 그는 블록체인 기술 전반보다는 오직 비트코인 자체의 가치와 철학에 집중하며 전통 금융 시스템에 대한 대안을 주장하는 입장을 고수하고 있습니다. 그가 창립한 회사의 목표는 비트코인 채택을 전 세계적으로 확대하는 것으로 특히 국가 단위의 비트코인 채택을 추진하고 있으며 엘살바도르의 비트코인 법정화폐 채택을 공개적으로 지지하고 협력한 바 있습니다. 이런 그가 비트코인 확보 경쟁은 이미 시작되었으며 그 속도가 빨라지고 있다고 지적합니다. 이러한 경쟁 속에서 비트코인을 모아야 한다고 강조하며 비트코인 확보의 중요성을 얘기합니다.
Right now, Bitcoin is sitting generally in the plebs' hands. The plebs have been able to front run everything. It's still in, basically private, hands, and it's very little is in nation states or big entities. Going forward, though, this, like you just alluded to, is what made me think of it, will change over time. But is that, and people might look at that as a bad thing, but to get paid in Bitcoin, say it's 10, 20, 30 years from now, getting paid in Bitcoin, naturally those businesses, those producers of society are going to have to accrue more in Bitcoin. You're going to be fighting against them. And that's why this is important going forward, like you said. But doesn't that kind of have to happen? Isn't this inevitable that will happen? And then all of a sudden people working for Bitcoin, that'll happen because those entities have the Bitcoin and they will start paying their, again, the employee has to ask for it too, but they will have the Bitcoin, so they will be able to pay their employees in Bitcoin. Isn't that how this is how it comes about in a large part, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, eventually people will demand to be paid in Bitcoin because, their suppliers, like the grocery store or department store, whatever, will want Bitcoin too. So it's just like an amplification of demand from all parts of society that want Bitcoin. So eventually you working for a company will have to ask the company, like, pay me in Bitcoin, because I can't buy groceries with this paper anymore. But hyper-Bitcoinization depends on how you define it, but I define it as the point at which you no longer need to convert Bitcoin to fiat anymore. You can just live on a Bitcoin standard and earn sats and spend sats. But I believe it's coming faster than most people would expect, because these types of changes in money, in the base money that everyone uses, are very quick changes. It's not a slow, gradual progression where, in 2 years, maybe we'll be at 20%. And then another 2 years, we'll be at 40%. It's quite exponential because when most people stop wanting the fiat, then everyone stops wanting the fiat because it's like a race against time to get rid of the fiat and get into something harder, which is Bitcoin.
Will we look at this time period right now as the next Bretton Woods? Like, I know there's not a conference going on. They got BRICS things going on, but America creating the SBR and trying to, really looks like revalue the dollar over time here against hard assets like gold, like Bitcoin. Is that what we're going to see? Is it going to be obvious, a couple decades from now when we look back?
Possibly, but I think it's probably bigger than something like Bretton Woods. I would say we'll look back at the period up till 1971 as the monetary dark ages, this period of time in which nothing really made sense. Because if you think about it, when we went off the gold standard, all of a sudden, this paper that was designed to represent gold, it's a IOU for gold, suddenly was disconnected. And you could now take this paper and whoever can print the paper can make more of it to buy back that asset that was supposed to be represented by that paper. So it's like bizarro world. Nothing really makes sense anymore because you have a relatively finite hard asset in gold, and you have, a representation of that asset in terms of paper or digital paper, whatever you want to call that. And now this can buy all of this. So, if you really think about it and you sleep on it and you mull it over, it's like wacko that suddenly this valuable thing can be bought by this worthless thing. And this is sort of the conclusion of that experiment. And I think we'll look back in 50 or 60 years, historians will look back and say, wow, I can't believe we were so primitive that we were led to believe that, this piece of paper had value. And that's sort of the realization, the look at it. Not, it's like Bretton Woods type, we agreed to do something, but it's just, we were all insane for decades using paper.
How do you get someone to, because it's the old like sales adages of like, how do you incept something into someone's brain, or how do you get them to understand or want something that you want while making them feel like they're the ones that it's their idea, and understand that's the incentives. Like, it feels like to me that most humans want to complain about things. They don't really want the answers. They want to just like fight red versus blue politics, because it seems so obvious. There's so many of us screaming at these people now with easy technology. They can see it. Like, they know, but it seems like, is it subconscious that humans like don't want the answer, or like many humans don't want the answer, and because they're scared of the playing field being leveled, or like this is just fascinating to me. We were kind of griping at each other, offline, albeit the same direction, but we're both like just frustrated. Like, it's just, I'm frustrated, you're frustrated. I think a lot of people are frustrated in the sense that, why is it so hard to understand? And it goes back to the altcoin thing, but why is it so hard for people to understand?
Because if you you kind of alluded to it, but if you give them the solution, then you just have to make some hard adjustments in your life, and that's it, right? There's not that much to talk about. We had a call with some people working in a country that is possibly ripe for Bitcoin nation-state adoption. And they were telling me, like, this is a problem here, this is a problem, and this is a problem. And I'm like, well, Bitcoin can fix all of those things, right? So the solution is so simple. And maybe it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like, it's so simple, people just don't want to acknowledge that it is that simple, that the money is broken, and that's it. But, once people are interested in Bitcoin, I think it's really hard to look at anything else and think that, well, yeah, I can ignore the money and we can just talk about these other problems, because, that's like kind of where we are at. We see every problem going back to the root cause of the money being broken. And that's all we think about. At least I think so.
샘슨 모우는 지금 우리가 살고 있는 화폐 시스템은 이미 고장났고, 그 해답은 비트코인을 기반으로 한 새로운 질서로의 전환이라고 보고 있습니다. 비트코인이 화폐 시스템을 대체하며 국가 단위로 확산되고 있는 지금, 곧 진짜 돈은 비트코인이고 나머지는 사라질 운명이다 라고 현 시장을 바라보고 있죠. 우리는 객관적인 시각으로 투자를 해야 하고, 지금 당장만 보고 투자할 게 아니라 미래를 보고 투자를 해야겠죠. 010-2472-0429 전화번호로 탈개미 적어서 문자 보내주시면 2025년 비트코인과 코인 시장에 대한 분석, 정보들 공유해드리겠습니다. 현재 우리에게 중요한 것은 이러한 정보를 어떻게 활용할 것인가입니다. 지금까지 영상 시청해주셔서 감사하고요. 다음에 더 좋은 영상으로 찾아뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다.